Joining us now to discuss from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania Congressman Brendan Boyle, who sits on the Intelligence Committee along with Congressman Schiff. I want to play some of what he's had to say, but first, for our viewers, everyone just learning about what this all means, where do you put the sanctions grade? Was this A+, everything that needs to be done, or something less?
No, I would give it an A, Ari, but I would also say this is probably the beginning of a process of responding. I'm very heartened by the fact that there have been some Republicans on Capitol Hill that are trying to put the country first. You look at the response from John McCain, from Lindsey Graham on the House side, Adam Kinzinger. A number of us on a bipartisan basis recognize that this is an attack not on us as Democrats or Republicans, but as Americans. Because let's face it, this is essentially the 21st century equivalent of Watergate. One was a physical break-in in order to get dirt that would embarrass the Democratic Party in that case. This was a virtual break-in, and they succeeded in this case getting information that damaged the Democratic candidate.
Let me push you on that. Congressman, let me push you, because this was allegedly criminal conduct. It was certainly bad. When you compare it to Watergate, though, the difference there is the criminal conduct was by the candidate in question, the American candidate, at that time incumbent President Richard Nixon, right? What you're alleging here is distinct, right? Because this is a foreign actor. You're not alleging that the candidate here, Trump, was involved in the crime.
No. So the break-in essentially is the analogy. Now, the people who were doing the break-in weren't officials with the White House. They were with a foreign power. Nonetheless, that doesn't make the actual effect of the break-in any greater or worse. We also have to recognize that this is part of a pattern, specifically with Russia. When you look at what they did in 2008 in Georgia, when you look at the way they've interfered with elections in Ukraine, this is not just a one-off. So making sure that we seriously respond to this sort of behavior from Russia, especially because we are going to be having elections coming up in Germany and in France, two elections that I'm quite concerned about, especially as the Brexit sort of mania is actually growing in mainland Europe. I want to make sure that we respond to Russia in such a way that deters them from doing the same thing in the German and French elections.
Take a listen to Ambassador McFaul, former U.S. ambassador to Russia under Obama, on Morning Joe talking about Putin's basic bet here that he can have something a lot warmer with the Trump administration.
Yeah.
He's decided he's going to try to work with President-elect Trump, and why not? I mean, given what President-elect Trump has said about his desire to have closer relations with Russia, I too would do the same thing if I were Vladimir Putin.
Do you agree with that?
I have the same exact view as Ambassador McCall, and I would say that regardless of the incidents that happened this past election, moving forward, even beyond these sanctions, I'm very concerned about what President Trump will do in regard to Ukraine and the sanctions that we currently have along with our EU partners. Those sanctions are much more serious. By all accounts, Vladimir cares much more about those sanctions, and if Donald Trump ends up as president true to what he said during the campaign, we're going to have a very different foreign policy with respect to NATO, Ukraine, and the Baltic countries.
And let me play briefly what Congressman Schiff said that I mentioned earlier here.
Yes.
I don't think they're weak, but I don't think they're ultimately going to be enough. And I'd like to see Congress step up and oppose broader sanctions. What really gets the Russians' attention is not so much the expulsion of diplomats or people masquerading as diplomats, but rather the economic sanctions like those imposed over Ukraine. That has really hurt the Russian economy. That's the only thing that puts Putin in jeopardy, and that's the only thing Putin cares about.
So that's a Democrat, I think, who wants more than you. Right. You said it gets an A, but he's saying, no, there's got to be real pain.
No, we have largely the same view. I give it an A for now, but I also said it's the beginning of a process. I would like to see congressional sanctions, which is important for two reasons. First, it would be able to go a step further. But second, if we were able to pass congressional sanctions by a large veto-proof majority, then it becomes irrelevant whatever President Trump may do. I think it will also send the right message to the rest of the world that you're not going to be able to interfere in our democracy and divide us on a party basis. We will respond as Americans first.
Right. All right, Congressman. Well, that's a lot of serious stuff to evaluate. On a lighter note, the last time I saw you was at the convention in Philly, and you had about 5 jumbo Philly pretzels with you. So I'm just sorry we're not in person, or I'd try to get one right off.
I believe that you took them all around and were very generous in sharing them. So next time in person, I'll bring the soft pretzels.
They got eaten real quick in the MSNBC newsroom, but just about anything does. Congressman Brendan Boyle, a happy New Year.